You're 32 years old, you've got $47,000 in your 401k. Your financial advisor, or maybe some retirement calculator you found online, just told you that you're on track to retire at 65 with $1.8 million. And you know what? You felt absolutely nothing. No relief, no excitement, just nothing, because somewhere deep down, you don't actually believe any of this is real. Look, if that hit a little too close to home, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not crazy. My name is Elon Musk, and I spend way too much time thinking about why an entire generation has given up on retirement before they've even started. If you're someone who maxes out your IRA every year but still can't picture yourself actually retiring, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because here's the thing, we're watching something really unprecedented happen right now. For the first time in modern history, we have millions of people who are doing everything right financially, and yet they fundamentally don't believe retirement is real. Not for them anyway. So let's talk about why retirement planning feels like you're being asked to believe in. A 2023 study from the National Institute on Retirement Security found that 67% of millennials believe they'll never be able to retire. Not that they'll retire late, not that they'll have to work part-time. They literally don't believe retirement will happen for them. And here's what's wild, this isn't just broke college graduates saying this. This includes people making six figures who are actively saving for retirement. Think about how insane that is. You're putting thousands of dollars every year into an account for a future you don't actually believe exists. Now you might be thinking, well, that's just young people being pessimistic. But here's what most people don't realize. They're not wrong to feel this way. The math of retirement has fundamentally changed, and nobody wants to admit it. Let me show you something. In 1980, if you wanted to retire comfortably, the rule of thumb was you needed about 8 times your final salary saved up. So if you were making $50,000 a year when you retired, you needed $400,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1.5 million in today's dollars. Sounds doable, right? Here's the problem. That calculation assumed 3 things that are no longer true. 1, pension plans would cover a significant portion of your retirement income. In 1980, 60% of private sector workers had a defined benefit pension plan. Today, that number is 12%. 12%. 2, you'd own your home outright by retirement. In 1980, 80% of retirees owned their homes free and clear. Today, according to the Joint Center for Housing Studies, 44% of homeowners aged 65-79 still have a mortgage, nearly half. 3, healthcare costs would be manageable. Here's where it gets really interesting. In 1980, the average retiree spent about $2,000 per year on healthcare. That's about $7,500 in today's dollars. Fidelity estimates that a 65-year-old couple retiring today will need $315,000 just for healthcare costs in retirement. That's not including long-term care, by the way, just regular health care. So let's do the new math. If you want to retire today at 65 with a middle-class lifestyle, you need your basic living expenses covered, about $1.02, 15 million. Healthcare costs $315,000 per couple. A buffer for inflation and unexpected costs, another $200, 300,000. And remember, you probably still have a mortgage. We're talking about $2 to $5 million minimum, and that's not to live large, that's just to live. But here's where the psychology gets really dark. Let's say you're 30 years old right now, and you make $65,000 a year, which is roughly the median income for college-educated millennials. You want to retire at 65, so you've got 35 years to save. Financial advisors will tell you to save 15% of your income for retirement. So that's $9,750 a year, or about $812 a month. If you do that consistently, earn an average 7% return after inflation, you'll have about $1.4 million by age 65. We just established you need at least $2 million, so you're already $600,000 short, even if you do everything perfectly. Okay, you say, so I'll save 20% instead of 15%. Great, now you're putting away $1,083 per month. But hold on, your take-home pay on $65,000 is about $4,100 per month after taxes. Your rent is probably $1,800. Your student loans are $400. Your car payment is $350. Health insurance is $200. You've got groceries, utilities, gas. Look, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that the person who can consistently save 20% of their income for 35 straight years, never lose their job, never have a medical emergency, never help their aging parents, never have their car break down at the wrong time, that person is a statistical unicorn. And here's the thing that really frustrates me. We're telling people that if they can't be that unicorn, they're failing at personal responsibility. That's insane. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what about compound interest? What about investing more aggressively? What about side hustles? Yeah, let's talk about that, because this is where it gets really interesting. The 7% average return I mentioned, that's actually generous. That assumes you're invested in a well portfolio and you never panic sell during a recession. But here's what most people don't realize. The average investor actually earns way less than market returns. Quantitative analysis of investor behavior shows that over the past 20 years, the S&P 500 returned about 9.8% annually, but the average investor only earned 6.5%. Why? Because humans are terrible at staying invested during downturns. When the market crashes and your retirement account loses 30% of its value overnight, it takes superhuman discipline not to move everything to cash. And you know what? I actually don't blame people for that. If you spent 10 years saving $100,000 and you watch it drop to $70,000 in 3 months, and you're thinking, I might need this money in 30 years, but I might also need to help my parents or my kids, before then, of course, you're going to panic. The system is asking you to have conviction about a future that feels increasingly abstract. So let's talk about what's really happening here psychologically, because this is the part that nobody wants to acknowledge. Our brains are really good at planning for things that feel real and concrete. You can plan for next weekend. You can plan for a vacation 6 months from now. You can even stretch yourself to plan for buying a house in 3 years. But 35 years, 40 years, that's not planning, that's faith. You're being asked to have faith that the economy will generally keep growing. Social security will still exist, and if it does, it won't be means-tested in a way that excludes you. Climate change won't fundamentally disrupt society. Healthcare costs won't spiral even further out of control. You won't get laid off during a recession in your 50s and never recover your salary. The retirement age won't get pushed back again. And here's what's really happening. Millennials and Gen Z aren't stupid. They watch their parents' generation follow all the rules, work hard, save money, trust the system, and then they watch the 2008 financial crisis evaporate retirement accounts. They watched companies raid pension funds. They watched housing costs outpace wages for 2 decades straight. You're not irrational for feeling like retirement is unreal. You're pattern matching. The pattern says that even when you do everything right, the rug can get pulled out from under you. Now look, I'm not here to tell you to give up and spend all your money on avocado toast or whatever. That's not the point. The point is that we need to be honest about what's actually happening and adjust our approach accordingly. Here's the reality: retirement as it was sold to previous generations. Stop working at 65, move to Florida, play golf for 20 years. That version of retirement is increasingly fiction for most people. And that's not a personal failing, that's a systemic shift. But that doesn't mean you're doomed, it means you need a different framework. Instead of planning for retirement as this all-or-nothing thing that happens at age 65, start thinking in terms of financial flexibility. Here's what I mean. Phase 1, build your stability foundation, ages 25-40. Your goal here isn't to save for some abstract future retirement. Your goal is to build enough of a financial buffer that you can handle life's inevitable curveballs without derailing completely. Emergency fund, 6 months of expenses minimum. Get rid of high-interest debt, credit cards, personal loans. Yes, contribute to your 401k, especially if there's an employer match. That's free money. But don't kill yourself trying to max it out if it means you can't handle a $2,000 emergency. Think of this phase as building a shock absorber for your life. Phase 2, create income optionality, ages 40-55. This is where you start building assets and skills that give you options. Can you develop a side income stream that you actually enjoy? Not a hustle you hate, but something that could grow. Can you build expertise that makes you valuable and harder to replace? Can you invest in real estate, a business, or other assets that generate income? The goal isn't to get rich quick. The goal is to not be completely dependent on a single employer's whim when you're 50 years old. Phase 3, design your off-ramp, ages 55 plus. Here's where you start thinking about what your transition out of full-time work actually looks like. And for most people, this probably won't be a hard stop at 65. Maybe you work part-time doing something you actually like. Maybe you consult. Maybe you run a small business. The point is, you're designing for flexibility, not for some arbitrary retirement date. A recent study from Rand Corporation found that people who transition gradually out of work, reducing hours over time rather than stopping cold turkey, report higher life satisfaction and better health outcomes than those who do a traditional retirement. Okay, so what do you actually do with this information? Let me give you some concrete steps. Step 1, calculate your enough number. Forget about calculators that tell you that you need $2.5 million. That's somebody else's number. What do you actually need to live a life you're happy with? Sit down and honestly calculate your current annual expenses, what you could cut if you had to be realistic, what you absolutely won't compromise on. Then multiply that by 25. If you need $50,000 a year to live a life you're satisfied with, your actual number is $1.25 million. Still a big number, but way more achievable than some abstract replacement income calculation. Step 2, save something even if it's not enough. Here's the thing, even if you can only save 8% or 10% instead of 15%, that's still building a cushion. That's still compound interest working for you. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Contributing $400 a month from age 30 to 65 at 7% returns gives you about $660,000. That's not retirement in Florida money, but it's not nothing. That's optionality. That's breathing room. Step 3, invest in your earning power. This might sound obvious, but your income is your most powerful wealth-building tool, especially in your 30s and 40s. If you can increase your income from $65,000 to $85,000 and you save just the increase, that extra $20,000 a year invested over 25 years becomes over $1.3 million. $1 salary jump in your 30s can matter more than 10 years of cutting lattes. Skills, certifications, network reputation, these aren't luxuries. These are your insurance policy against becoming obsolete. Step 4, build multiple small bets. Don't put all your eggs in the 401k basket. Yes, contribute, but also build that emergency fund. Maybe invest in a rental property or REIT. Develop a skill you could monetize. Create multiple small income streams. The point isn't to become a real estate mogul or startup founder. The point is resilience. If one thing fails, you have others. Step 5, adjust your timeline. This is the hard one, but it's real. You probably won't retire at 65 in the traditional sense. You'll probably transition into something else. Start planning for that now. What could you do at 65 that you'd actually enjoy and that would pay you something? Start building toward that now. Not as a backup plan, as the plan. Look, here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. We're in a transitional period in human history. The social contract that said work hard for 40 years and then stop working was a historical anomaly that existed for maybe 50-60 years in developed countries. It was built on the back of unprecedented economic growth, strong unions, and demographic patterns that no longer exist. That contract is breaking. It's not broken because you're not working hard enough or not saving enough. It's broken because the economic fundamentals have changed. And you can either spend your life angry about that and feeling like a failure because you can't achieve something that was never really achievable in the first place, or you can accept the new reality and build a strategy that actually works in the world we live in now. Here's the mindset shift I want you to make. Stop thinking about retirement as this binary thing where you either achieve it or fail. Start thinking about building a life where work becomes optional gradually. The goal isn't to stop working at 65. The goal is to get to a point, whether that's 60, 65, 70, whatever, where you work because you want to, not because you have to. Where if your boss is an idiot, you can leave. Where if you want to take 6 months off, you can. That's real freedom, that's real financial independence, and that's actually achievable if you start planning for it today. So if you're 30-something with $50,000 saved and you're feeling like retirement is fake, you're not wrong. The retirement you were sold probably is fake, but that doesn't mean your future is doomed. It means you need to build something different. Start building for flexibility instead of for some arbitrary retirement date. Build multiple income streams instead of depending on one. Build skills instead of just accounts. Build a life that becomes gradually more optional over time. And here's the thing, once you accept that the traditional retirement model is mostly fiction and start building for optionality instead, you'll probably sleep better at night, because you're not trying to hit some impossible target anymore. You're just building a more resilient, flexible life. Start today, even if it's just $100 a month into an IRA, even if it's just taking an online course to build a skill, even if it's just sitting down and actually calculating what you need versus what some calculator says you need. The future is going to come whether you plan for it or not. You might as well have a plan that's based in reality instead of fiction. If this video changed how you think about retirement planning, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below telling me what your actual retirement plan looks like. I read every comment, and I genuinely want to know if people are finding creative solutions to this problem. And remember, you're not failing at retirement planning. The retirement planning model is failing you. There's a difference. I'll see you in the next video.